David gave me some questions.
Well, I guess he gave you the same question, huh?
Mm-hmm. Read.
Huh? We.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got. Look, I keep these. Surprised I didn't bring it. I know David got something. I just told him so.
Mm-hmm. My,
Hi, how you doing?
That's it.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Got it. I'm
A
on.
toast
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful.
to stories.
To the stories.
Uh-huh. Stories. All right. Tink, tink.
Sherry glass.
Tink-a-tink-tink.
Welcome.
Thank you.
How you doing? Would you like to introduce yourself just for the people out in the audience that may not be familiar?
Sure. My name is Allison Cross. A music therapist, a trombonist. I've dabbled in DJing and producing and just all around a fun person, honestly.
I agree.
Thank
Just
you.
based on the fact that we met you at a very fun event.
Yeah.
Seemed like everybody was having a good time that night. Wouldn't you agree, Jamie? Yeah, we were having such a
Living our
great
best
time.
lives.
You couldn't said it better. Had a very good time. So when we met you, I honestly couldn't remember what you did, and you don't remember saying it.
Appreciate that.
So let's talk about that. What do you do?
Okay, so my background is music therapy,
Okay.
music and healthcare. I've practiced for about 14 or 15 years. So
okay.
I've traveled the region. I've gone up a couple hours north of Louisville, and I've traveled down to like Bardstown, E-Town, and kind of everywhere in between. So my company is mobile, and so that means
you show up.
Yeah, we're going to meet people often at the place where mediation is needed the most.
Okay.
In their communities, in their homes, at the hospital. And then, how do you form healthcare goals around casual conversations, experiences? Well, you talk to them, build rapport, work on projects together, and then this thing that we call music is kind of like a third party.
Mm-hmm.
It sits in the room with us. So over time, we are able to talk about their music
and just kind
how
of
that music
bring it together.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I thought it was interesting. You said you were mobile. So how does the call get made? We need music therapy in here.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do this. Like, how's that connection being made to say that this is the type of therapy we need to bring in for said clients?
I think in general, with rehab or rehabilitation, music and art are very central to that process already. So sometimes people will contact me because they're looking for somebody that's more relatable, or they're looking for somebody to work with their Black clients, or they are looking for somebody. We've had a music therapist. She does a good job at what she does, but the consumers, the people that are receiving the service, don't really like her. So we still want to have music, but we want it to be tailored a little bit more to what these individuals like. So and that's what I'm actually really good at.
At the risk of kind of reiterating what you were saying, they had trouble establishing that rapport and connection with the clients that we were talking about.
I'd say it's a frequent thing in therapy. You got to find a good match. So yes, music therapy is the same way.
So now that we brought that up, would you like to give maybe more information on how the process of music therapy goes, what that entails? I mean, for the best, as far as the format we got going, I mean, I know it's probably a lot more involved than I would know, but like, what is music therapy doing? And what's the process of, submitting the therapy to the client? What are you doing? Are you teaching them how to play an instrument? Is that basically what it is?
No. Okay. Some people do learn music skills and get better at music as a process, but we're mostly working on goals that have nothing to do with music. So people's communication, their cognition, the way they think, or the way they move, depending upon what's going on with them. Okay. If it's somebody with cerebral palsy, like, okay, movement and language. If it's somebody with autism, it's like, okay, language and social skills. If it's somebody that's had a stroke, it's like, okay, language and cognition. So being able to look at what a person does effectively
Mm-hmm.
or does not do, and put them in music situations to work with
So
those
the
skills.
music is really more of a communication device.
It
Like
is.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to trying to learn.
It's a organizing property.
Okay, because you mentioned conditions like cerebral palsy. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And did you say something about somebody that had a stroke? So there
Yeah.
could be a physical
Yep.
or mental debilitation going on.
Mm-hmm.
Is it kind of trying to fill those gaps of some of the areas that they no longer have or may not have ever
or
had?
need to regrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody's different. You kind of have to jump in and see what they're doing and what they don't do. Sometimes people will say, oh, I don't communicate well, but they actually do communicate well. They need more support on the social end of things. Like, oh, you can talk and think just fine.
Right.
Your communication is actually intact, but your social skills could need some work. So you're just kind of, I would say, I come from the psychodynamic framework where we're looking at a person's whole life
Mm-hmm.
and looking at the different systems that interact. You know, there's been a lot of terms for that, holistic or humanistic.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, yeah, being able to see what a person does and help them starting on where they're at is.
And we know therapy is a very much meet people where they at situation, and the people that are really passionate about therapy know that you have to meet people where they're at and build from there.
Absolutely.
And you were mentioning some of the challenges associated with, fitting clients in with a therapist that understands the situation.
Yep.
Being specific about working with you being Black, working with Black clients.
Yep.
What there's a stigma in the Black community that comes with getting any type of help or formal therapy, where there's a resistance that a lot of times has to be overcome. You have to establish that relationship before you can even begin the therapeutic process.
Absolutely.
What are some of the challenges that you faced trying to bridge that gap and coming in? Like you said a few minutes ago, you're coming in, maybe possibly replacing somebody else. So you already got some apprehension.
Right. Absolutely.
Coming in the door. So how are you able to kind of bridge that gap or make that connection with the clients, specifically Black clients, as far as getting them engaged in the process and establishing that relationship?
I would say there's probably two factors.
Okay.
There's the client themselves, and then there's also the people that are around them. Their staff, the adults, the teachers, and whatnot. So as a beginning point, you might pinpoint, especially if you're replacing somebody, like, are the clients ready to go, and or is the staff ready to go? And if one of those are no, that's probably where you need to start. With the staff, it's education. Like, I'm here to help. We are doing non-music goals, so I'm not going to teach them how to play music better. We're working on our social skill, reiterating the things I just said. But then with the clients, kind of, it's okay if people are allowed to have a bad experience, and sometimes going with them to that area. Is it okay if we talk about this? Can you tell me what happened? What makes you not like this process? And I think people are overwhelmingly able to say, like, I don't like it, I don't like this because whatever reason. So, you have to give people advocacy and volition. Like, those are, from my opinion, step one. So how can you grow
the relationship?
Yeah, how can you grow with somebody if they are still apprehensive about, like, why they're being there?
Right. And I mean, you have a really good personality. I noticed that when we met you, it was kind of an instant, hey, and we just instantly started having a conversation and that type of stuff. So I know that benefits you well. What brought you into this field? What are some of the things that made you passionate about music therapy and using this particular method to work with clients?
I'm going to say how you see me now is not how I began.
Okay.
I'm going to put that out there. So in the beginning, I was playing sports, and I'm a trombone player.
Okay.
And just kind of looking out in the world.
Brass.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm not going to be an athlete. I'm not going to be in an orchestra. So with music, you kind of have to take away the things that are not going to work and pinpoint what will work. if I'd have known about music business when I was 19, 18, then that would have been an option, but I didn't know about that. So from my point of view, it was like education, therapy, or performance. And of those three, therapy is like overwhelmingly more in line with what I would want to do.
Is that based on a personal experience or something that maybe you might have been exposed to
Mm-hmm,
that kind of lit the bulb on that?
the
That you would pick that aspect?
the
to
home I
deal with
grew up
music?
in, my grandmother lived with us, so we all have like a lot of healthcare. Well, me and both my sisters work in healthcare,
Okay.
so I would say the experience of having to caregive when we were little probably.
The model of helping people
Mhm,
and being
mhm.
attentive was already kind of in place.
Yeah, I would say so. And my mom's a teacher, so it's like we're already in the service
Well, yeah.
kind of industry.
I mean, we're not chosen, and I'm just saying this, we're not, I mean, no, we are chosen. We don't choose. Let me word
Mm-hmm.
that correctly. It's the experiences in our life and the people that we're around, I feel like kind of curtail you to these helping professions.
Absolutely.
For you to even choose, I want to establish some form of a music career, and I'm going to choose to use music to help people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Even though, before we started the show, we were talking about how music is a very powerful element to anybody's life. We know how music it can influence. It can actually, create certain type of atmospheres and behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a
Absolutely.
certain type of mood and hear a certain type of song, you're either gonna go hit this way or that way.
You
You're
don't
in
know
a
how many
yeah.
people, if you ask them, did you play an instrument when you were younger? It's going to be yes or no. For all
Mhm.
the people that say yes, if you ask them, do you still play? It's going to be yes or no.
Mhm.
For all the people that do not still play, if you ask them why, I guarantee you they will say bad experience with the teacher.
Mm.
And it sucks
Mm.
to what you're saying. Like music can set the vibe up so good, or given
can
a
be the
bad
opposite.
experience, like yeah, you can take people away from music for their whole lifetime. Like, yes, it's such a powerful thing.
No, I see it. When I think about therapy and how a lot of the stigma that we talk about formal therapy, and I'm not going to go off on a huge tangent on this. I just want to be clear, but I think about this carefully. A lot of the formal therapy, at least for mental health, has been, not really designed to work with our populations.
Of course not.
So a lot of the stigma has been created based on negative experiences you have with therapy by bringing somebody in that really doesn't understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
So then that becomes an overall arching
Kind of
therapy's not
vibe
for
on it.
me,
Right,
or
right.
this is not going to work. I don't want to do it.
Mhm,
I feel
mhm.
like I'm being examined. A lot of the experiences we have as African Americans is when you go into formal situations, there's a questioning, there's a distrust, or what do you do? What are you doing here? Let me make this as uncomfortable as possible. So maybe you won't even want to engage in it. Maybe there's a desire to not help people. Like I said, I don't want to go off on a tangent on this, but I can see how what you were saying about teachers having a negative experience kind of forms this opinion of this. I'm not even going to incorporate this into my life at all.
Yeah. So when you're dealing with therapy, you kind of have to put all that stuff on the forefront and deal with all of those apprehensions like first, and then you can get on to why are we here? Why are you in treatment? That's a whole nother question.
Yeah, it is.
And sometimes you have to consider that sometimes people don't even want to go there. So in music, what do? Your song, make a playlist. We play instruments together. We might talk about a not necessarily negative, but like a high emotion experience, and then pick a song that matches that experience, and then kind of debrief about the song as a way to give access to the real life thing that happened.
So when you say pick a song, is it literally like you're sitting with the client and they literally have a whole entire library of music, whatever
No,
genre?
you ask them what song matches this experience, and you go with what they pick.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of clients are able to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Like
absolutely.
I know exactly what song makes me feel this way.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
reflects exactly how I think.
Client preferred choices.
Well, I mean, that's awesome, because once again, that reflects back to, if you can pick a song for every, the moods that you're feeling, that just shows you how powerful an element music is.
Absolutely.
That means this song has already elicited emotion out of me previously.
And they can verbalize it. Like, yeah, you got to give people benefit of the doubt. Like they can do their own work.
Oh yeah. Well, therapy is, they're the ones supposed to be doing the majority of the work.
Absolutely.
But I think that's really awesome because, once again, I didn't have a real strong concept of how the music therapy. I was thinking that you bringing in instruments and we're therapeutically gonna learn how to learn this new skill, and that's gonna, I'm not saying it can't be that, but that's what I was thinking it was.
There is an aspect of skill building that fits into cognition. So if you see that people are specifically averse to gaining new information, then yeah, instrument skill building might be something that works for them to get around what their patterns are. But if it's somebody that doesn't want to play instruments, then we don't have to play.
Okay.
You can sing, you can drum, you can move, you can write.
Music is literally beatboxing or rapping on a table. Music can happen
absolutely
anytime you have sound. So going back to what you were saying about being exposed to kind of the caretaking aspect or the healthcare aspect, how did that make you push on and continue? Because when you first started doing it, let me put it that way, did you know this is for me? I'm here.
It comes and goes, I think all new professionals have moments where they're like,
oh yeah,
what am I doing? I have no idea what I'm doing. And I
want to keep the show PG-13, but I've already
absolutely
the frustration you can get. And I didn't mean to cut you off. I hope I wasn't cutting you off.
No, you're good. I think we're on the same page.
Yeah, just the frustration you get just working with people at times when you're trying to help somebody and you're getting this resistance, and you all be, am I even helping? I think every form of therapist has said that. Am I even helping anybody?
Yeah, literally.
And then every now and then you get that little glimmer,
absolutely,
of hope, that text, or or even sometimes I've heard from clients that I've worked with in the past, and they reach out and be like, man, you really, if it wasn't for you, and and stuff like that. I know it doesn't happen as often as we would like, but even when that happens, it reaffirms, okay, that I am doing something, because there is a lot of doubt when you're working with something like therapy. That's not really an exact science. You're kind of going in, like you said, getting a feel for who you're working with. So you really don't, coming in, do you even know how you're going to approach this situation?
Not always. When I was in my first job, we would have concerts in the spring and at Christmas. And those were actually really good ways to gauge what was going on, because the clients were very impassioned about it. They cared about the songs that they had been practicing, they cared about giving a good performance. But once you do that, you work with somebody for 5 or 6 years, and you do those concerts twice a year, you really see a huge difference between spring and Christmas.
Okay.
So you may not get, I think it's another misconception about therapy that you're going to have these aha moments. It really never happens. It's mostly little small increments where you encourage them to be their true selves and do that consistently. And over time, you get to see them grow into a different person. But you're not really going to get that, oh yeah, tears and you've changed my life. That's not
it's very theatrical. Yeah, it's just
you
like
might
what
get
you
that
said,
at the concert, but you're not really going to get that
in a regular session.
When you see somebody every week or twice a week or 4 times a week, ain't no aha moments.
It's almost
very
like,
much so
again,
being with them in the small, and waiting for something to happen so that you can support them, so that you can show them how they can support themselves, and then start all over again. All right, great, you got it, let's keep on going.
So are those type of situations have kind of kept you going? You said you've been doing it for 15 years, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So with all the frustrations that come with it at times, and all the, kind of the slow and steady progress that's involved in therapy, is that part of your motivation for continuing to do it? Or is there an overarching goal of just saying, look, this is needed for, people in the communities that I work with?
So we've come and gone in phases, I've been burnt out doing therapy, I'd say more than a few times. And when that happens, you kind of have to decide what doesn't work, get that out of the way, and then latch onto the things that work and keep on going. So for me personally, I worked for somebody else for about 6 years, and then I'll save you all the tangent.
You don't have
several things that were not working, several things that didn't work about that job, and I left that job. And 6 months later, I inherited a business from another job that I was doing. So I'm like, okay, great. Here's a chance to take everything that I know and like cultivate the things that I want to be there. So this is where my practice started to be more geared towards African American people.
Okay. I was gonna go a little personal
Mm-hmm.
because this is something the therapists deal with as well.
Sure.
How does your self-care factor into the ability to de-stress some of the things that you deal with in therapy,
Mm-hmm.
some of the complications, some of the difficulties? How do you able to, you know, use what you know
Mm-hmm.
and incorporate that in your own life as part of your own personal therapy? Because we all know therapists need therapists need therapy
Mm-hmm.
too. So
You got to know where
how
your
do you fit your
boundaries.
passion into your normal life? In
Yeah,
other
you got to
words,
know where your boundaries and your triggers are. Like, am I getting tired? Do I need a break? You got to know how to schedule breaks for yourself. Like, stop working for 2 or 3 years without taking a break. Like, no, go ahead and schedule your vacations in every couple months and just take them. So, like, pacing, putting myself on a good like schedule that acknowledges like where my boundaries are, and also you gotta, you know, after you do a couple of years, you've exhausted everything that you know. So you have to read and like take on new projects so you can learn more and
so that's what you do for
work with.
fun.
Well, no, but to answer your question, like being aware of where my limits are and when I need to like change things up so that I can stay interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I was trying to speak on.
Okay, so it's more like a change of approach, maybe sometimes.
Yeah, or just like a flow. You know, how many hours am I working?
Because I know every particular thing's not going to work with every client.
You
Like, the
know,
only times you have to do that, even with working with different clients.
mm-hmm. Well, I guess the other thing that I'm not really saying is like by and large in music therapy, we're seeing kind of like the best of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think over time, when you're putting your boundaries in place, you're not taking on too much work, you're taking breaks, and also working with people that you like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get burned out so quickly. So that's kind
I
of
agree.
where I'm at now. Like being authentic and genuine, like more consistently, contributes to less burnout.
Yeah.
You know
I
what I
mean,
mean?
I might make the argument that that's probably the most important quality of any therapist and
Mm-hmm,
working with
mm-hmm.
people is exactly what you just said.
And so I feel like I've
People can
arrived
read
there like
authenticity.
the past 2 or
Mm-hmm.
3 years, and that's really what's made it last. Like being able to show up as my like actual self when I go to work.
So, self, what is there an overarching goal to
Mm-hmm,
what
mm-hmm.
you're doing? Is there a certain plateau or a certain point that you're building upon as far as where you're going to take this? Because I kind of said this before we started recording as well, is that, I truly believe that people, have several careers throughout their
Mm-hmm,
life,
mm-hmm.
or things grow and change, and you take the skills that you built upon and go on new adventures and new
Mm-hmm.
projects, as you put.
Yep.
What is your goal for what you're doing outside of just helping clients?
I'd say right now I'm definitely into passing info along.
Okay.
Like I've got 3 contractors in my company,
Okay.
and I train 2 of them. So like giving them information so they can work.
So is the goal to do less therapy and more guiding?
Well, no. The goal is to start working with. Well, I'm. I know I'm making a
I hope I
huge
said
jump.
it right.
Yeah, yeah.
We're good.
I'm making a huge jump. I'm leaving out the whole middle space. But we have a project that we're working on in Jamaica.
Okay.
So the goal is to offer therapy to more people of African descent.
Okay.
That's the goal. I've like offloaded what I'm doing in America, and my goal is over the next 6 months. Like that's where I'm at right now, to be able to begin working in Jamaica.
So is that going to springboard something for going in other countries outside of the U.S. doing the same thing?
Right now, we're just looking at Jamaica.
Okay.
I'd say yes. In the future, we're going to be worldwide. Yes. But for right now, we're starting.
Yeah, when I say goal, I'm thinking, what aspiring to,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
even if you can't necessarily point out the exact trajectory or, but it's like, this is what I ultimately want my
mm-hmm.
music therapy career to become.
People in the African diaspora are having the same problems that Americans are having all over the world.
Yeah.
one thing that we face here is constantly being reminded that we're Black,
Mhm.
and to go into spaces where you don't have to do so much work around race. I mean, I know that work is
Yeah.
going to present itself differently, but right now, I mean, I've been an American. I know what it's like to be an American, and I'm definitely interested to offer therapy services to people that are like not hung up on the experience of Blackness. You know, like let's a lot of these conversations about building rapport and taking away mistrust, all those things, all those steps are still going to be there no matter where
Universal
we
steps.
go.
I would argue those universal
Yeah,
steps.
we're
Just
going to
working
do
with
that.
human,
Exactly. We're
yeah.
going to do that work anywhere we go. But what I'm speaking specifically about is not having to convince people about the humanity of Blackness. I'm like, I am done with that argument.
So who are you making these arguments with about?
Non-Black people.
Okay.
You know,
So
why are we
go ahead.
if Black people are so damaged and there's so many traumatic things that happen, you know, first of all, how can we speak positively about Black people? What's the point of continuing to work with Black folks in the diaspora in America and otherwise, you know? How are we helping our non-white brothers and sisters like have more respect for Blackness? I think all that stuff is tied up in health, mental health, you know, offering a good service to people. In fact, working with small children, you know, every traumatized Black person that has a child passes that trauma on to their child. So now
we talk about this a lot.
We are in generational stuff, you
yes,
know.
like
so
you would be an African American or Black in America, however you want, whatever your choice. There's a like you're
like
coming.
Our bloodline
you're
is
coming
affected.
into trauma.
Absolutely.
There's even
our bloodline has trauma
yes.
in it, like going back.
It's become genetic.
Absolutely.
It's become genetic.
Absolutely.
So it's
when
more
you
than
see
breaking
dysregulated children, or you see
yeah.
anything going in the homes, you know, just providing those speech, music, OT, nutrition services, like that is so fundamental on the success of Black people in the future, you know. So,
and a lot of these things we're talking about that we've been traumatized by are supposed to be just regular, basic human rights things that's supposed to be
again
a given.
Your teachers, your music teachers, you know, people, and people not being aware of where their trauma lies, passing it on to us, and then now we got it, we're carrying it. So we, at some point, we have to self-educate about how do we get this off of us, you know, how do we reclaim who we are meant to be and like go do that.
How do you imagine that might change the scope of what you do if some of those stigmas and trauma was lessened, or, you know,
how it would change what I do?
Yeah, like is part of the main component of what you do based on the fact that we're dealing with these populations, or you're dealing with these populations, to be specific. If, you know, obviously we're trying to lift some of that or relieve some of that, would that change any way how you do what you do?
No, I don't think so, because trauma is always going to be there. But what we get as a result are like more resilient and strong bodies. And I think that changes what I do. You know, when people are coming to me from a more like strong place,
more open.
Yeah, exactly. Less homophobic, less depressed and with anxiety. Like when people are like approaching therapy from a more healthy place, then they themselves can get farther. You know, if we're not spending 6 months dealing with the bullshit, like if we can just jump in and start working, then hey, everybody gets better.
I agree.
You know,
and
their families, and their whole ecosystem that they exist in. So all these are like very personal spiritual beliefs. You know, you got to believe in the strength and resilience of Black folks, and that's a lot of where this conversation is coming back to.
Yeah, well, that's the important part, and reason why therapy should become more of a mainstream, not something that you just address when there's something terribly wrong.
Not just in crisis. Yeah.
Yes. This is something that I am checking up on myself. Whatever the method that's being used to deliver the therapy, whether it's music therapy, or just what we're talking about here, The idea is that it's being more normalized. It's just something I do to keep myself, on point.
Yeah, like exercise or like practicing an instrument.
There's
just
always room for
maintenance.
improvement in your life. I think that's what a message I try to deliver a lot. No matter how well you're doing, okay, I'm doing good. Well, why can't we do great? Why can't we just take it all the way?
This is something that's been kind of on my mind maybe the past like 6 months or a year, not even that long. Well, did y'all grow up in Kentucky?
I did.
When you grow up here and you have resources, you have parents, you lived in a home, you have siblings that love you. We look at this region and the families, the Black families that live in the middle of the country, and we say we're good, we're healthy, we're good. But we're also comparing everything only to people in Kentucky. But when you think about the world, like there's so many models of what Black health can be. And like if you go to New York,
experiences are different.
Or even DC, like what it looks like to be healthy there, it's like, oh, y'all have so many more resources than what we have here. And so like your image of what Black health can be expands. And like if you go to Europe and meet Black people there, you're like, oh, this is a completely different experience. And so the idea is, I think we're all kind of born into silos with what we know just being the standard. And part of this health that we're talking about is like not feeling as though you have to stay in that silo for your whole life. And yes, bad things are going to happen, but
definitely
having the resilience to like imagine what could be different and then work towards that. Like the imagination has got to be in there. Having a sense of creativity and resilience, like not getting knocked down by every little thing. Like those are all very basic mental health tenets. Imagination, creativity, resilience.
And a lot of that can come from the family even before you decide to get therapy. You see what I'm saying? I think that's what we're really saying. It's like, how did we change that whole narrative of what trauma looks like in a Black family? What are some of the things that be done to reduce some of these issues that you're talking about, as far as being born into a situation where you don't even know what stability looks like?
Yeah.
It's
seriously.
like, the conversation I had with you earlier, I don't want to go back to that, but just, as far as
parents raising children, it's not easy.
Children.
Goodness.
A lot of single parent households. I mean, a lot of the trauma just stems from the fact that the family unit is broken. And you coming in as a therapist could be the only positive element in some of these clients' lives. Like, period.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I have a group of those kids now, like actively right now.
So it becomes like the beacon of light for someone. And once you get past, the initial resistance of, are you even, because the one thing about trauma, and you create these attitudes of mistrust and stuff like that, it's hard to get in because they're not trusting anybody.
Absolutely.
If you've got a tattered relationship with the people closest to you, the people that's supposed to be taking care of you and providing, this positive atmosphere, if you don't have that, I mean, you're going to be,
a little bit stuck probably for a while.
And I think being stuck is part of the major narrative when we talk about Blacks in America. I mean, I don't want to go talk about a tangent, I mean, is there anything else you'd like to add to this discussion as we talk about music therapy, what it means to you or what it means to the world or your clients? Is there anything that you feel like we didn't touch on?
No, I think this has been a really good conversation. Like, I guess at the end of the day, from my viewpoint, I feel like there's a mindset of things just being good enough for Black folks. Like, that's good enough for us. And helping people see that, like
on an aim higher situation, is what you're saying?
Yeah, but like those goals don't have to come from other people. They can come from you. They can come from, like, what do you want to do? And it's absolutely okay for you to dream big and actually get there.
I think dreams are supposed to be big.
That's what I'm saying.
And, If you're gonna dream, why not just?
Yeah, and like we are so capable of doing that, and you know, I think for me, like to really break the cycle of poverty and impoverishment or whatever else, like those each person has those resources within them, so to empower people individually about what it takes to like get there is is important. It's probably the name of the game for my.
Yeah,
for my
I'm
point of
thinking
view.
community. Like it needs to be everybody's on this.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
In an ideal world, it would be that way.
Yeah. Well, I like to speak ideally. I know. So, if there's nothing like that, I mean, I thank you for coming out. I mean, I'm so flattered that you would come and join us. And
Thank you for having me. This is beautiful.
I've been so enlightened.
Thanks for your work on getting this message out. Because honestly, yeah, we need to hear it. People need to hear it.
And hopefully you'll join us again.
I would like.
We can expound upon this.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you again, Jay Mitchell, the man with the plan.
I can dig it.
All right.